Hi, I am Dr. Sandra Carrillo. I am a co-founder of Medican IPS, Medical Cannabis Clinics in Colombia, and president of the Colombian Medical Cannabis Association. You are listening at Professionally Cannabis.
Where do they go, the smoke rings I blow each night? Oh, what do they do?
Hello,
Those
listener, and welcome
circles
back
of
to the
blue
Professionally
and
Cannabis podcast. It's absolutely great to have you with us today. And also with me today is my co-host, Oscar Hausman. And for those of you who have checked out our new website for the pod, cue audience noise, ooh, you'll actually be able to, yes, you'll actually be able to see Oscar's newfound mane that he's sporting at the moment. Your hair is looking pretty fantastic. Oscar, tell us the secrets behind it.
Yes. The listener will be able to see my mane on our new website, professionallycannabis.com. And what a great URL that is. The story behind my hair is quite an interesting one, actually. I didn't cut it, and it grew longer. And then the longer I left it, the longer it grew.
That is fascinating stuff. Listener, email into us and let us know if you'd like to hear that story again. Always
What I
hot
was gonna
content
say-
on the pod.
I'm not the only person on the pod who's had a change of haircut, actually. Although we don't have that guest on today, so I'll leave that as a little amuse-bouche for listeners who pay attention from one episode to the next. But I will
Delicious.
I will mention, because today's guest, she does have long hair, but I think she may have done it before the lockdown forced everyone to stay away from the barber. And actually, today's guest is known for a lot more than long hair.
Yeah, joining us today, we actually have the South American / Latin America perspective, as we have Dr. Sandra Carrillo on the pod. Now, she is the president of the Colombian Medical Cannabis Association and is a very prominent cannabis doctor in this space. She splits her time between Colombia, where she works, and Panama, where she lives. And coming from sunny London, which nobody calls it, I would speak for myself and Oscar to say that probably isn't too bad a path to be sharing your days and weeks between. What do you reckon?
Well, I'm very envious. Oh, sorry, didn't pronounce that one.
I'm an
I
engine.
think I'm very envious of Sandra. I mean, being able to help so many people's lives, really lead the movement forward, and she's so passionate about it and knowledgeable. I think, listener, you'll see when we play the interview, but her enthusiasm is contagious. And for anyone who's got questions about how medical cannabis works in Latin America, this one's definitely unmissable.
Where do they go, the smoke rings I blow each night? Oh, what do
Today,
they
we are
do,
joined by a
those
well-known
circles
clinician
of
within cannabis medicine, Dr. Sandra Carrillo, president of the Colombian Medical Cannabis Association. Based out of Panama and flying between there and Colombia to treat patients with cannabis medicines, Sandra is a great person to give insights into the canna landscape in Latin America, industry education, and the relationship between doctors and patients. We cannot wait to kick off this interview. So without further ado, Sandra, welcome to the Professionally Cannabis podcast.
Hello, Jonathan. Hello to all the audience. I have very honored and feel very honored to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, we're very glad to have you on the podcast. So without further ado, I'd like to ask you, what led you to the plant?
Thank you, Oscar. That is an amazing question, an incredible one, because I used to be this very traditional doctor, believing just in traditional medicine. And by saying this, is not that I don't see that medical cannabis is traditional, because we've been using it for thousands of years as a medicine. So what led me into the use of cannabinoid therapies was epilepsy. I am a volunteer of an epilepsy foundation, a children's foundation, We help kids that suffer from different types of epilepsy. So I saw these mothers, these families, they had to fly to other countries to get medicine to treat their children. I live, as Jonathan mentioned, between Panama and Colombia. In Panama, medical cannabis is not legalized yet. So it was very sad for me to see these mothers. They have to fly to other countries in order to get medicine to help their children. And when I start seeing the improvement of these children with cannabidiol and cannabinoids, I realized that I had to study how this works, because this is science, this is medicine. So I started getting very curious many years ago, and I started flying to different countries to learn about this amazing plant.
So can you give us a sort of a brief outline of the countries where in Latin America where medical cannabis is legal or where it's likely to be, and what are sort of the differences or the regulations that allow it there?
Yes, of course. In Latin America, we have Uruguay. Uruguay was the first country in the world to legalize medical cannabis and cannabis for recreational purposes. So they legalized both. Uh, Other countries in Latin America, such as Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia, are countries that legalize medical cannabis. So this is very important because each country has different regulations. Coming from Colombia, I do see Colombia as a pioneer in the reglementation and legalization of medical cannabis. Many of the countries in Latin America have been looking at the Colombia law model, and they've been seeing what mistakes we made and what things we did great. So in Colombia, particularly, the legislation has been taking a little bit of time on being in place. We legalized medical cannabis 6 years ago. And just last year was the first time that the patient got access to treatments. They were regulated for the Ministry of Health, and they were properly regulated by the pharmacies. So this is very interesting because, in most of the other countries of Latin America, I have to mention also Mexico. Mexico is a country who legalized medical cannabis 4 years ago too, and they are just this year starting to see the reglementation of this law. We need to remember that something is pass the law, and another thing is when the law is really getting in practice, or when the patients and the doctors are actually being able to prescribe and the patients are able to receive the treatment. So this is very particular in Latin America. As I mentioned, Colombia, 6 years after the legalization, right now we have products. We use magistral formulations. Doctors prescribe medical cannabis, and the patients finally are getting access to these treatments. In other countries like Brazil, Argentina, Ecuador, Peru, they're still having a lot of challenges into in the fact of getting access to the treatment. So I consider that Colombia is leading the way in Latin America.
And you mentioned about patients getting access to products. As I understand it, sort of a particular quirk of the legislation in Colombia means that when yourself or one of your colleagues as a clinician prescribes a product to a patient, you have to put sort of the exact specification of the product for the patient, and then it goes and gets created and made somewhere specifically for that patient. Now, have I got that right? And if so, or if not, could you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, Jonathan. This is a very interesting model. Colombia legalized the use of cannabis as medicine, but one of the primary sources of this medicine for patients is called magistral formulation. As you pointed it very well, it's a single prescription for one single patient for one single pathology. That means the patient comes to my consultation. Of course, I do the thoroughly evaluation, clinical history, clinical examination, and I decide what type of chemovar I want to prescribe to the patient. But I write like in a separate matter, these milligrams of CBD, these milligrams of THC, and you have to put like almost the compounds separated, and this formulation will go to this pharmacy that has a special license for magistral formulations. So they prepare the formulation there on site. That means they cannot have like these products in bulk ready to deliver to the patient. So actually it takes like 3 to 5 days when the chemist makes this preparation and it's been sent to the patient's house. So this is one of the main models. We're using it right now. The challenge is we don't have a big variety of chemovars right now. As I mentioned, we just started having regulated product available 1 year ago. So there is a few licensed producers that they got the permits to create these magistral formulations in order to deliver it to the patient after the prescription of the doctor. We also have the pharmaceutical grade model. We have cannabidiol purified or isolated. We have our own form of Epidiolex, right? And this is also prescribed by the doctor, but it's easier the way the patient has access. Of course, everything has to be through doctor's prescription.
What are the products available for patients in Colombia? You said the registered products just started coming in last year. Are those domestically produced or imported from Canada or elsewhere in the world? And are patients getting flower or extracts or gel caps or anything in between? What does the market look like for patients in Colombia?
Yes, right now we just have oral formulations. So we have oils, sublingual. They are developing also sprays and capsules, but right now the main source or the main presentation we use for patients is the oral formulation. We don't use flour. The government hasn't allowed doctors to prescribe flour. It's just oral formulations. They are in development of suppositorium, dermal patches, but right now we have been using the oral preparation, mainly oils. They are developing lately like capsules and sublingual sprays, but it's mainly oral formulation.
And with regards to clinician education in Colombia and across Latin America, how did you find accessing information and sort of locating the right and credible sources of education so that you felt comfortable in prescribing and sort of creating specific formulations for patients? And what mechanisms are there in Colombia and sort of wider Latin America that you know of for colleagues of yours, clinicians, to educate themselves on cannabis medicines, the endocannabinoid system, and beyond?
That is an extremely important question because, you know, I always say the education is the key to destigmatize the use of cannabis as medicine. And this is one of the biggest challenges we're facing all over the world, particularly in Latin America. I've been focusing a lot of my efforts and many years trying to create and collaborate in education initiatives. I am a co-creator of an educational platform. We created content for training doctors and healthcare practitioners. I have an alliance with one of the most prestigious universities in Colombia, and we are right now giving a diploma certification to doctors. We already graduated 4 or 5 cohorts of doctors on the therapeutic applications of cannabinoid medicine. We've been teaching through an online platform right now because of the pandemic. This is 100% online. certification. But the important thing, and what I see there is a key, is alliances with universities. That's what this educational certification that I am a co-created, we did it with a university. So we've been delivering this education to different countries in Latin America. We have trained doctors from Argentina, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Panama, different countries in Latin America. There is also other initiatives in different countries that they are creating educational programs, because I see a growing number of doctors, GPs, general practitioners, and specialists. They want to know more. They want to learn more about the endocannabinoid system, about the cannabinoid therapies, about the scientific evidence. So I consider the education is extremely important, because it's through the education that the doctor feels confident in prescribing medical cannabis. And all these will revert into the benefits of the patient, because a well-educated doctor, a confident doctor in the prescription of cannabinoids will mean a patient having safe access to treatments. I am, as you mentioned at the beginning, I am the president of the Colombian Medical Cannabis Association. We are a non-for-profit association, and we gather different doctors from different specialists from different cities in Colombia. We have psychiatrists, neurologists, cardiologists, anesthesiologists, even dermatologists. So this tells you how medical cannabis has, and the endocannabinoid system plays a role in every system in our body. So with our association, being a scientific association, we promote the education based on scientific evidence. So those are tools that we are using in Latin America for educating doctors. There is a lot of misinformation in internet. And regarding of what you're saying, Jonathan, there is a lot of information that is not reliable. So doctors need to have reliable information, and that's what we try to do. The fact that we have the opportunity to have alliances with scientific associations from all over the world is very important. We have also an alliance with the Association of Cannabis Specialists, ACS, in the United States, and Portugal Medical Cannabis. What I love about medical cannabis is the fact that doctors from all over the world are so willing to share their knowledge. So this is amazing, because we can help other doctors they are just starting, or even other doctors that they know something but they don't feel confident. So I agree with you. Education is key right now. We need to keep promoting education all over the globe.
I feel that there's something in that, because none of the doctors who are currently working with cannabis, I suppose, would have had much, if any, education about the endocannabinoid system while they were in medical school. I mean, I think the first textbooks on the subject were written in the 2000s at least, and so maybe the newest doctors may have some. There's probably not much out there. How are your doctors in your practices keeping up with the latest information and learnings coming out of cannabis research?
This is very important. And even with University of Panama, we started last year to giving lectures to students, as I mentioned, from different healthcare professions. And I see a massive interest from all these students to learn about the endocannabinoid system. Also in Colombia, we are trying with our association, with our scientific association, we are creating something that is like we call it semillero, that is like a special part of our association dedicated to students who want to learn more about the endocannabinoid system. So I consider that in Latin America, we are very aware that we need to start teaching students about the endocannabinoid system the same way that we get the knowledge about the other systems in the body, like the circulatory system, the immune system. So this should be a module of the pre-med school that all the students should be getting. I think we are not 100% there yet, but I am very positive that this will be happening very soon. I see, as I said, universities in Latin America, faculties of medicine very interested in this subject, which makes me very happy, because when I studied medicine 25 years ago, nobody talked to me about the endocannabinoid system. I wish I knew something about this wonderful system that is in charge of the balance and the homeostasis of the body. So since I learned about the endocannabinoid system, my vision about the way the body works has changed. So I think the cannabinoid therapies and the learning about the endocannabinoid system is changing the approach of doctors in the matter they see and the way they will prescribe medicines in the future.
And something else I'd be really keen to touch upon is sort of the interaction with the business side of things in Colombia. As many of our listeners will know, a lot of the large cannabis operators and LPs that are very well capitalized have operations in Colombia, and Colombia is one of the hottest spots, particularly looking at the cultivation side of things. What would you say is the relationship between the medical world and the business world in Colombia pertaining to cannabis? And perhaps as an extension of that, what role do you see businesses such as these playing in the realm of sort of medical education? And what role should they be playing?
That's a very important question too. The industry in Colombia is booming. It's incredible, as you say. Many licensed producers from different countries in the world, Canada, United States, Europe, are looking into Colombia for different reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is the location of Colombia. We have a privileged geographical position where we have endless time of sun, endless. We don't have the stations, the seasons. We have sun all the time. Our soils are very fertile. We have cheap labor, which is something that matters when you are creating these cultivation facilities that needs a lot of people working in there. And then the sunlight is different when you are cultivating in a climate where you have seasons of snow, where you will have to put your plants indoors and you will just spend a lot of money in electricity and different systems of lighting. In Colombia, you have the sunlight all year long, you have the labor that is qualified labor, and you have the geographical position that makes this plant to thrive. And plus, we have this tradition that used to be something really bad for Colombia, the dark edges of the narco traffic and all these bad things that happen in Colombia that now are being shifted and moved to a legal business, a controlled business by the government, monitorized. So even they are helping those farmers that they were doing illegal cultivation. They are encouraging them to go on the legal side, applying for licenses and getting to do what they used to do all their lives for bad purposes, turning this into a good purpose that is producing medicine. Because in Colombia, is just medical cannabis legalized. They recreational or what they call adult use is not permitted, is not allowed by the government. So I think Colombia shifted all those years of the tragedy of the war on drugs, and they are trying to turn that knowledge or that amount of agricultures that they were doing that into something good, into a legal industry producing medicine to treat ailments of people. So I think the business is booming and related to medicine. I see a lot of scientists starting to do research and taking advantage of all the good things that we can have in Colombia regarding to knowledge. And now with all these companies coming from abroad, bringing technology, so we can create formulations that they can work very well for patients. Right now, what we have of products in Colombia are products that are locally produced, but they are produced under the BPA, BPL, BPE, all the standards. They have to have all the laboratory standards. The products the doctors are prescribing are produced in laboratories that they have to meet all the standards and certification and testing. Doctors are not prescribing the artisanal products. We are prescribing products. They are regulated by the Ministry of Health, which is something that gives the doctors the confidence that you're prescribing a safe products, and gives the confidence to the patients that they are getting a safe products. Of course, there's still a lot of, I will call it black market, some people call it gray market, but I always encourage the patients to go to the doctor and get the medication that the doctor is prescribing as safe and regulated product.
So we've talked a little bit about the products that are available in Colombia. Can we talk a bit about the indications for which patients can get access? You initially talked about epilepsy, but that's fairly niche. Are there other diseases or conditions by which Colombians can receive prescriptions?
Yes, it's very important. In Colombia, there is not like a particular list of pathologies that a doctor can treat. But as a doctor, I always like to prescribe to my patients treatments that I know based on scientific evidence. So mainly what we treat in our consultation is epilepsy, of course, refractory epilepsy, primarily if it's Lennox-Gastaut, Dravet syndrome, and tuberous sclerosis. Neurologists are treating a lot of these patients. We treat also the patients with chronic pain. We have chronic pain, is a very broad word, but we treat patients with oncological pain. I mean, patients with cancer, derivated pain, or patients who are undergoing palliative care or chemotherapy, mainly for pain, anorexia, insomnia. We are treating patients with multiple sclerosis, specifically for spasticity. We're treating patients with anxiety, and then according to each doctor, they will decide how with which pathology they feel more confident. In my particular case, I like to treat patients where I have more scientific evidence. So with epilepsy, chronic pain, we treat a lot of patients with fibromyalgia, arthritis, irritable bowel syndrome. So it is a broad range. Of course, we always tell the patients that the medical cannabis is not a first line treatment. Usually the patients that come to our consultations are already, they have been treated already with different medications and nothing works. This is almost the 90% of the patients that come into our consultation. They've been already tried a lot of different treatments, and they find that cannabis is the alternative that they have. So So it is very pleasant for me and for the medical community to be able to help these patients that haven't been find a resolution or a relief of their symptoms with medical cannabis. But we also, and in my particular case, I always like to be very clear with patients' expectations, because sometimes patients are coming thinking that cannabis is going to cure certain pathologies. So that's why it's so important to do patients education. So we explain them what are the expectations that the patients can have with these therapies, but we find extremely useful, and we have seen a growing numbers of doctors prescribing in Colombia, and a growing numbers of patients coming to ask for this medicine.
And you mentioned something there that I'd love to build upon. You touched upon patient education, and actually earlier within our discussion, you spoke about, Colombia's, let's say, checkered history with what has previously been viewed as narcotics and the war on drugs and everything else that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are very well versed in regarding Colombia and cannabis and other narcotics, so to speak. With that in mind, how difficult or easy is it to educate patients on cannabis as a medicine, knowing the history behind Colombia's history with cannabis? And again, what sort of mechanisms are there for people in Colombia to access education about cannabis as a medicine and not just as a sort of narco traffic drug?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. It's a lot of work. We are just scratching the surface. There is a lot of education we still need to do. But you know what has been very surprising for me? I get a lot of elders going to the consultation, and sometimes I ask them, because Colombia and Latin American cultures, believe it or not, even though we had suffered all this war on drugs, is a very traditional and conservative society. So when I see patients 60, 70, 80 years old coming to my consultation, I ask them, how do you feel about taking medical cannabis? Are you scared? Are you afraid? What are your concerns? And the pleasant surprise that I get is that I said, I'm not worried, because I know I'm coming to a doctor, and I know that these products are being treated as medicines and processed as medicine. So I feel confident and I feel safe that through a doctor's prescription, I'm going to get safe medication. So that is very, very nice to hear from a society that is very conservative, and that stigmatized a lot the use of these plants for many years, because it was used for the wrong purposes. But now in Colombia, there is a lot of media talking about medical cannabis, about the benefits of medical cannabis. And even Colombia, last year, the government announced that all the projects related with the industry of medical cannabis were nominated as interested projects. So that means that they will give priority to help to these projects. Colombia is seeing in the medical cannabis industry an opportunity to help the economical situation of the country, being a legal business. So the perception of the patients is really good. What we do is we have in place pharmacovigilance programs, and we do a lot of education on the matter, of course, of the protection of the youth, of the young people, of the adolescents, to explain them that the fact that we legalized medical cannabis doesn't mean that it's okay to smoke high amounts of THC in the streets, that they are two different things. And we identify risk populations, and we've been trying to do a lot of education to patients. we still have a lot of work to do because it's been like just a few years since we legalized. But I do see the population very receptive, and the communities of patients very eager to have access to all these treatments. So I think we need to reinforce the efforts into educating patients and educating young people towards that this is medical cannabis for treating ailments and pathologies what we're talking about.
Well, I think that's a fairly concrete answer, and I understand where you've come from on that. I think that's all we've got time for today. So I just want to say, Sandra, thank you for being a wonderful guest on Professionally Cannabis. We've had a lovely time having you on, and we hope you enjoyed your time here with us.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I am so honored to be here with you, and I really appreciate the efforts you do to educate people, because this is exactly what we need. We need reliable information. We need open conversation, because it's the only way to destigmatize the use of cannabis as medicine. It is through education that we all together we can do that, and for you to have this initiative to promote education and make it this impact in the life of other peoples, because they will know what is medical cannabis, how it's being used, why, when, where. So I really want to say congratulations to you to have this amazing initiative, because at the end what we all looking is to help other people. Thank you so much.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Where do they go, the smoke rings I blow each night? Oh, what do they
Hi, listener. Thanks for staying with us, and thanks so much for Sandra for joining us on the pod this week. And listener, if you enjoyed the pod, we would love for you to like, share, give it a nice review, and subscribe, of course, if not already. All of the positive feedback that you guys give to the pod really helps propel us forward and helps us bring similar interviews like the one with Sandra today. So we, as ever, appreciate your support. Anywho, until next time, bye now.
Please take me above, take me with you.